What's up, brand builder? Stephen Hurahan here on the Brand Master podcast. And in this episode, I'm joined by Mr. Brian Kurtz. Now, for those of you who don't know him, Brian Kurtz is a direct response copy master and author of the engaging book, Overdeliver, Build a Business for a Lifetime, Playing the Long Game in Direct Response Marketing. Now, Brian Kurtz is definitely a throwback marketer to a Mad Men time where copy was rightly king, and an expert who I associate with the likes of industry legends such as Eugene Schwartz and Jay Abraham. Now, Brian positions himself as a serial direct marketer who believes that marketing isn't everything, but the only thing. For nearly 40 years now, he's followed a specific set of direct marketing principles that helped him to build an iconic publishing company to $150 million at its height. Principles which are even more applicable with today's state-of-the-art modern marketing methods. So if you want to learn techniques to persuade your audience to choose your brand over your competitors from a man who has spent his life persuading tens of millions of consumers to do exactly that, then stick around for this episode of the Brand Master Podcast.
Welcome to the Brand Master Podcast, a show specialized in helping branding professionals and entrepreneurs to build brands using strategy, psychology, and creative thinking.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Master Podcast. And I'm absolutely delighted to have me on the show today with me, Mr. Brian Kurtz. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today.
You know, when you reached out to me for this podcast, Stephen, I didn't know who you were. And then I looked you up, and then I really didn't want to do the podcast. I'm kidding. That's New York sarcasm. But basically, I was intrigued by how you have structured this podcast, the idea of branding and what branding really is and how it fits into marketing and advertising and everything else. And being a direct marketer, which is, direct marketing, which is actionable, measurable, accountable advertising. You have to get an ROI every time you advertise. It's counter to the idea of branding or public relations or publicity. And yet, having a brand, you have to know, do you have a brand? And whatever you have, you need to use it to your advantage and then build it. But within a direct marketing context, you also need to get an ROI on the branding. And they're counter, and yet they're symbiotic. And we talked before you hit record here of my approach to it, and I'll come up with some examples. And I was just very excited to get your email and the invitation to be on this particular podcast, because it's a topic that I know a lot about based on my 40 years in direct marketing.
Absolutely, and I read your book Overdeliver, and it really is a throwback to really simplified communication, getting down into the what makes people make decisions. What is it that we're trying to get at? And we've kind of lost that a little bit. So it seems like just a couple of months ago that I was listening to you every day on the way to the office in the car, and to have you on the show now is great.
That's a scary thought.
I know it is.
My wife can't listen to me for more than 2 or 3 minutes. So
well, I get to pick your brain now beyond just the book, so it's really, really good. And the reason that I wanted you specifically on the show is because, first of all, copywriting is such an important aspect of branding that is really, in my from my perspective, has been overlooked. If I was to give it a role, I would say it's probably our greatest tool of influence as brands is the copy and the messages that we put out there. And I know from our brief chat offline there that there, even within the world of branding and marketing, we've got two very distinct camps. You've got the marketers, the pure breed marketers who look to branding as, they believe it's fluff and bullshit. And then on the branding side of things, we look towards marketing and direct response as this kind of dirty world where we don't want to be associated. But really, the what you kind of alluded to before, the symbiotic nature of the two, somewhere in the middle is true. And I want to dig into that. What's your idea about the crossover between the two worlds of branding and marketing?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. You can't just will a Nike swoosh. You
Hmm.
can't just will a logo. You can't just and branding is so much more than that. And as I said initially, that you need to establish what you have already. You always want to know. And the Jay Abraham, who wrote the foreword, who's a marketing genius,
Hmm.
wrote the foreword to Overdeliver, my book. And he always says that his book, my favorite Jay Abraham book is Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got.
Hmm.
Before you build anything, you got to see what your assets are. What do you have?
Yep.
And some people have a brand built into what they've already done. So to me, that's the first step. The second step is not to throw money away indiscriminately on, I'll say, building a brand or on publicity or public relations that doesn't pay out. You can do both. You can build a brand and do direct response marketing that pays out at the same time. One example from my career was when, for example, we had a database of, I think we had probably 9 million names of buyers and subscribers to the newsletters that I ran at Boardroom and the books we sold at Boardroom, mostly consumers, mostly business people at home was kind of the marketplace. And this market was so ingrained with the first newsletter, which was Boardroom Reports. And then we launched another newsletter later on, which was more consumer oriented, called Bottom Line Personal. And all of a sudden, the business took off. And we realized that Bottom Line was the brand that we should hitch to as the key brand. And so what we did was everything after that was branded Bottom Line. Before it was Boardroom Books, then it became Bottom Line Books. Before that, we started doing, like, we had a health newsletter called Health Confidential, and we changed that to Bottom Line Health. And it was just the simple name change to where, because it wasn't like we were building a brand. The brand built itself from the marketplace that we were going after. And the creative and the copy just went with that. I'll say something else about copywriting and branding in a minute. But the thing that was so interesting is that we launched the company. It was called Boardroom Inc. We launched it as a business newsletter, Boardroom Reports. Everything was Boardroom Books. By the time, 15 years later, everything was Bottom Line. In fact, Boardroom Reports, the initial newsletter, became Bottom Line Business. Everything came under the Bottom Line brand, if you will. And then it was interesting because it was Bottom Line Business did much better to the database now and this is a very simple example of brand. I know it's very simple, just the name, but you can see that we didn't go after a brand. We saw what our audience was doing, and that's way more powerful. As far as the idea of copywriting being the most important, I'm not going to play devil's advocate, but I'll give you the opposite of that. I say that creative is the least important element until it's not. And what I mean by that, and I already illustrated it by the idea of our database moving toward Bottom Line from Boardroom. But the interesting thing is that the creative is the most important, but not initially. And there's like 3 legs in a direct marketing program, like any marketing program, but specifically direct marketing. There's the list, the media, the audience. That's 1. The offer that you're making is 2, and then the creative or the messaging. And there was a theory that said it's the 40-40-20 rule. And it's in my book in chapter 4.
I remember
talk about RFM and list building. And I made it the 41-39-20 rule. The 41% is the list, the media, the audience. It's all about them in terms of because Gene Schwartz, who wrote Breakthrough Advertising, talks about the copywriter doesn't create desire. The desire is already in the marketplace. Yeah. It's your job as the marketer copywriter to find where it is and then just tap into it. So if you have the right audience, then you come up with the offer, 39%. And then that 41-39-20 rule kind of implies that the creative is half as important as the media list and the offer. It's not. What it is that you have to get to that third. Once you get to the creative that you want to do specifically for the audience. Just the example I gave, writing for bottom line as opposed to boardroom to a bottom line database is changing the creative. And my experience over 40 years of doing this is that the creative is, and that's where I'll agree with you, the creative, I said it's the least important until it's not, then it becomes the most important, as you suggested. Because once you have your list of media dialed in and you have an audience that's hungry for what you have an offer that's irresistible, then the creative takes it to direct marketing nirvana. And that's where you get your biggest lifts. So you can tweak the offer, you can tweak the list selection once you have it, or the media selection. But if you have those two things dialed in, the creative takes it to a whole new height. Now, the reason why I say 41, 39, 20, and the way I prove it, is that if you have the perfect list, perfect media, perfect whatever, you have an irresistible offer, and you use mediocre creative. We'll say online, you have a flashing red box and an arrow saying order here. You'll make some money. You'll get some orders because you have the right audience with the right offer with mediocre creative. The opposite's not true. You can have world-class creative and messaging, a branding philosophy. And if you have an offer that's wilting in just not a good offer, not irresistible, and your audience is not interested in what you're selling, you're going to get zero orders. So that proves the 41, 39, 20 rule in essence. And it also makes the creative the most important once the first two are dialed in. And that's the critical way that I look at. And so if you're just going to go for creative and branding and websites that are pretty colors and aren't doing anything, in direct response, that's like, that gives me hives. I really resist that. But it's not that I'm resisting branding. I'm not, I don't see branding as this evil thing, but it's got to be within a direct marketing context. And I see it played out over and over again. And it's amazing if you start with your audience and your offer and then work the creative to the audience and the offer, you will see what your brand is. And then the creative takes it to new heights. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view of how branding and direct response, and we can dig in on any of that. I have other examples that I've seen over my career that really prove this out.
Look, I love everything that you're saying there, and to really unpack the idea of where you went to with boardroom and just providing that clarity and following what the audience said, to kind of build a brand without even realizing that the brand was being built. And that kind of ties back to
or you didn't know it was there, even. You didn't know it was there, which is
exactly
interesting.
And it kind of ties back to, I like to distill everything within branding back to the human aspect of it, because I'm a firm believer in the human brand philosophy, and the brand that we're building is a human entity to connect with another human. And if we do it like that, then I see branding as the relationship side of things, and I see the marketing as the ask. Now, you can be a great person, being friendly to everybody and building relationships all over the place, but without that ask, you're never really going to get anywhere. Yes, you'll have a lot of relationships, but if you don't ask, then you're not going to get. Likewise, if you just go around asking people without really building relationships, then you're going to get a lot of no's as well. So there's a symbiotic relationship there between the two, and we kind of need to do both very well. We need to build the relationships as this slow burning thing where we're giving value and we're kind of talking to our audience and understanding them. But at some point, there has to be this ask of a favor, to you build that relationship and then you ask and then the circle is complete. How do you differentiate between direct response marketing and branding, and how can you create copy that is both persuasive on one hand, but also relationship building on the other?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question. And I have an expression. I say everything in marketing and in life basically is not a revenue event, but everything is a relationship event. So we're on the same page there. The problem becomes, And the thing is, the fact that, I mean, I'm a lot older than I look. And so I've been, I've been doing this since I was 9 years old. That's why I've been in freedom. So I would say that in chapter 3 of Overdeliver, I say, how paying postage made me a better marketer. And it's about direct mail, because direct mail was the, the ultimate direct marketing medium when I started in the business in 1981. I was not 9. And so the interesting thing is that knowing direct mail and knowing that you're paying postage and printing gave me the training that said, I can't do ultimate just relationship building, but I could give away content that's valuable. I could lead with value still. And that's one of the keys in building a relationship. You need to lead with value. You need to lead with contributing to, whether it's even in one-on-one. I mean, I need to lead here, contributing to your audience and to you before I could ask them for anything or before I could do anything. And the problem with, now fast forward to online marketing, and I'm an online marketer. I do a lot of email marketing. I do a lot on Facebook. I do a lot on, whatever, Google AdWords and a lot of online advertising. The thing is, when you're not paying postage and printing, you tend to, move into sort of a lazy, sloppy way, and you start asking without the privilege of having a relationship you identified. And the beauty of online marketing is that for the most part, it's pretty inexpensive. You're certainly not paying postage and printing. I remember there was an urban legend going around. I don't know when it was, probably early 2000s, that there was something happening where the U.S. Postal Service, probably an April Fool's joke, that the U.S. Postal Service was going to start charging for every email, postage for every email. And I thought that would be a really good idea, believe it or not, because that would weed out all the riffraff, and it would teach online marketers a discipline that, not that I learned, but all direct marketers learned in the age of direct mail, when you had to pay for postage and printing. Now, of course, that didn't happen, and email is still pretty inexpensive. However, that doesn't give you a license to just, barrage your list with a bunch of crap.
Absolutely.
And so some people do it, and they make a lot of money. And I just don't choose to do that. And you'll find that let's use email as the example here, because I think email is the killer app right now. And it still is. I mean, email is the relationship building media. It's not Facebook. It's not Instagram. It's not TikTok. It's not Google AdWords. It's email. And email, to equate it to direct mail, which was not quite relationship building, but the way we did it at Boardroom, when we did, 32-page magalogs, 32-page promotions that talked about the product. It gave you some of the steak and not just all sizzle. That was the precursor to like launches online, where you give away your best content up front because you know that there's more best content in the future. You have to have this confidence in online marketing that you can give away your best stuff initially, which is leading with value, and that when people then are really into that content, then the ask becomes so much easier. But you have to have the confidence that you've got more best stuff behind it. What happens is most online marketers, not most, but a lot of online marketers, I don't want to, do a broad brush of every online marketer here, but a lot of them feel that, well, if I give away my best stuff, I'll have nothing to charge for. Well, that's a scarcity mindset. And you've got to have an abundance mindset in terms of your content, what you can contribute to them, what you can deliver to them. You might want to save some incredible content that's your secret sauce to charge for later on, but you still have to lead with value. And I encourage people to lead with their best thing for free. And it's just, it's a model, moving the free line. There's a lot about that. And it's not just you have to give it away for free. I mean, people think that, writing a book, the only reason to do it is to use it as a lead magnet, give it away for free shipping and handling, and then get people in this elaborate funnel and start selling them stuff. So I'm not a fan of that. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying it's still a legitimate direct marketing model. But if you're looking at building a brand, building relationships with your audience, whatever it is, I mean, I have a list of about 15,000 people that I blog to every week. And I never call them my list. I always call them my online family. And it's not bullshit. I'm not doing it to be like cute. I'm doing it because I train myself that they really are my online family. Doesn't mean I don't ask them to buy stuff from me, but my consistency and congruence also needs to be there. So whatever you're doing, if you're selling all the time, asking, if that's what you're doing consistently and it's working for you, then that's your congruence. That's what you do. Isn't what I do. I like to build the relationship. And I even wrote a blog post. It was more about not so much selling online, but it was the title of it was never ask. You said asking, so it was perfect. I said never ask from nowhere again. That was the subject line. And the concept was that, asking somebody for anything, asking somebody to be on their podcast, asking somebody to be a guest speaker at one of my masterminds, asking somebody to for a favor, like they're a Facebook expert and you want some advice. Anybody who says I'm going to pick your brain, you said it, but you said it in a good way. But anybody who's asking to pick your brain, all they're doing is picking your pocket. I mean, most times, because they're trying to get information for free. But the opposite of that is that if you want to deliver upfront the value, deliver what you can give them that can improve their life, the asks, and you don't have to. Like, I think that there was a guy I was at this big event not that long ago, late last year, and there was a guy stood up, and it was like 250 people in the ballroom. Guy stands up. He says, "I'm 26 years old, and I'm struggling because I'm developing great contacts. I'm developing great list of people that I'm meeting, and I don't know how to monetize it." And, so I'm like throwing up in my mouth because the way I look at it is completely opposite. Like, you're 26 years old. What deep relationships have you developed that you need to think about monetization immediately? So that was my premise. And I was thinking about going up to see him, and, not lecturing him, but kind of maybe ask him some questions so he could see the flaw in his thinking, which is what I like to do a Socratic method, which Jay Abraham taught me. But I chickened out. I didn't go find him. But lo and behold, I'm at one of the breaks. Guy taps me on the shoulder. It's him. And he goes, "You're Brian Kurtz, aren't you?" Not that I think I'm that famous. I said, "Yes." I said, "Yes." He says, "I've read your book, Overdeliver. I knew you were here and I really wanted to meet you." So I immediately thought, okay, he's going to put me on his list and he wants to connect with me and then probably monetize me, because that, my thought went there because that's who this guy is. So I had to get to the what I wanted to say to him quickly. I wasn't mean. I was very generous with him. It was clear that he had mentors in the room when he stood up. So he was bold enough to say that he wanted to monetize his list and people were mentoring him. And I also checked with one of his mentors and he said, yeah, he's young and he doesn't, I hate being grandpa at the picnic, but you can't develop and Jay Abraham calls it your relationship capital. He said it's the most important account you have, much more important than your bank account. It's your relationships. So I kind of said to him, I said, you want to monetize your list, but do you contribute to your list on a regular basis? I asked him all the questions that you would think I would ask him. Do you interact with them on a basis of 100-0? Do you give to, and this is in my book. I said, obviously, if you read my book, you would know about it. So I said, you give 100-0 to everybody in your life so that when you don't ask for anything in return, you have no expectation for anything in return. When you give 100-0, even if you don't get something back from that person, I believe you're putting, good karma in the universe. And so the only thing I could tell him was that I only have 40 years of experience doing this. Not a lot of time, right? Only half a lifetime. And so I've been doing this my whole life. Not saying you have to do it like me, but when I ask somebody for something, anything, especially in the marketing area, I know that it's not an ask from nowhere. It's an ask from, yeah, I'm ready to ask this person because I have a deep relationship with them, or it's so much in their advantage to say yes, that's the ask I will make. And Joe Polish, who's one of my great friends, and he just wrote a new book called What's in It for Them. That's the essence.
Yeah.
What's in it for them? And so I'm a big believer in everything you said about, it's about relationship. It's not about revenue, but with deep relationships comes revenue, comes the ability to ask people for something, and it doesn't even feel like an ask. I ran an event in 2014 called the Titans of Direct Response. It was a tribute event to the founder of Boardroom, who had died the year before. And I got the best of the best in direct marketing to speak at it. I got Dan Kennedy, I got Joe Sugarman, I got Jay Abraham, I got, Gary Bencivenga, America's best copywriter. I got the best of the best. I got Greg Renker, who runs Guthrie Renker, the top infomercial. I'm not bragging, it's not bragging if you did it, but I'm not bragging to saying that. I'm not name dropping either. But it was, every one of the asks was not an ask from nowhere. It was an ask from the fact that they all participated in the growth of Boardroom. They all loved Marty, who is now dead. They loved me, I'm alive, and let's go do this tribute event together. Everybody said yes, and Dan Kennedy called it the event of the decade. It's last decade, but it's the event of last decade. And so probably do a 10-year anniversary next year. But nice. The whole point is that none of the asks were from nowhere, and on the opposite, they were all asked from somewhere. It's the same thing when you're doing email marketing. On a lesser scale. You're not asking somebody to come cross country and speak at an event at their expense. I mean, I'll pay their travel and all that, but I'm not going to pay them a speaking fee. But I can make that ask because I have, 40 years of relationship building. So the equivalent on an email list would be, what's 40 years experience with a person on your email list? It doesn't take 40 years to do that,
and look,
but it doesn't. You can't do it in 15 minutes.
No, and I'm a big believer in that, and that's my exact philosophy as well. My list is everything, and I'm actually pretty ruthless with my list. If you're on my list, it's because you're engaged in my stuff. I cull my list pretty ruthlessly. Like I've deleted probably 40 to 50,000 people off my list, simply because I'm sending great content out into the world, and they're not engaging with it, and that's absolutely fine. And because I do that, and because 90% or more of the messages that I send this list are value. They're value driven, and that's why I have open rates of between 40 and 50%. And
I do too, and it's because of the same reason.
Exactly, and that's the philosophy that we're kind of we're getting into here as branding. And I think everybody on this listening to this podcast is probably more subscribed to that philosophy than the other side of the spectrum, where everybody is a marketer, and as Seth Godin said, all marketers are liars, and there is that perception out there in the world.
Marketing is not evil, and
it's not. But what I want to do is I want to bring those who are already within the world of branding and subscribe to the philosophy and the idea of branding, that there is a place for direct response, and you just have to need the two together. That is, to continue the relationship building, but to create persuasive copy at the same time while honoring that relationship. And that's really what I want to kind of introduce to professional brand builders, is that copy, that marketing isn't evil. And really, if you've got a good product that you believe in, sprinkling your brand messaging with some persuasive copy is helping to kind of build that bridge and to deliver the product that you believe in to the people who need.
Let's call it what it is. It's relationship, and it's selling. And the thing is, like, when I've spoken internationally, and I've been on some international stages, I've been to Budapest, Hungary. I've been to Paris, speaking to marketers and entrepreneurs. actually entrepreneurs in Hungary is interesting because, they were under communist rules since they were under communist rule up to 1989. So it's kind of interesting. But Hungary, Paris, the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, I've been on a lot of stages internationally. And that gives me an amazing opportunity not to be the ugly American. Like, I don't want to be the ugly American, because it's clear that a lot of those countries feel that while America is the pinnacle of marketing, and I go, the United States isn't the best at everything. I know that, but in marketing, we're the top. I mean, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
So when you I'm on stage in Hungary, and I'm up there, and they're sitting on their hands thinking, oh, this guy's going to tell me how to gouge my customers, how to sell. So I start with marketing is not evil, and I prove it to them. And then I get into a discussion with them about something I've already mentioned in this podcast, which is consistency and congruity. So what I say, and congruence. So what I say to them, it's like, you need to sell at some point. You need to, once you have a relationship with your audience, you need to sell them what you want to sell, because, why share your mission, vision with the world? Why share your products or services with dozens of people when you might be able to sell it with thousands or millions? So you need to sell at some point, but you don't have to sell all the time. And you can sell with congruence with who you are, how aggressive you want to be. As you said very eloquently about copy, that you massage the copy to who you are, how to be consistent all the time. And that's what you do, it sounds like, with your list and your online family. It's what I do with my list and my online family. And it's not about let's scrape somebody's likes from Facebook and just, bombard them with crap. That's not the idea. Of finding out who you don't want on your list, which you already brought up, is just as important as who you want to add to your
100%.
list. That's why you get 40 to 50% open rates. That's why I get 40%. But the more important thing, and you've already hinted at this as well, that it's not just the open rates. I think open rates are overrated. It's engagement rates. It's how they engage with you. If you ask a question to your online family, I bet you get a lot of response, like I do, where I ask them for their opinion. Legitimately, I ask them for, do you agree with my premise here? I'm going out on a limb. I'm talking about, like, if I want to do something on branding and I say branding is bullshit, what do you think? I want to get some real feedback both ways. And then you get into a discussion. And once you're engaged, then you can sell them, because they're going to want to buy from you if your offerings are related to the content. So that's why I don't do affiliate deals. So affiliates are great. You can do affiliates to your list, make a lot of money. Some people make all their money doing affiliates. I don't do them because, first of all, I don't need the money. So that's a good thing. What I do is I find products and services that are in my educational realm. So they're in an educational realm of direct marketing. And so then I can offer those products or services. And what I do is I tell the person, if you want me to promote this, I like your product, I like your service. If you want me to promote this, I will do it. But you have, and you're giving an affiliate commission, right? And they say, yeah, I give 50%. So I say, you know what? Take the 50%. I don't want your money, but you will I will be able to offer it to my audience at a 50% discount. You're getting the same amount of money, and I'm basically taking my affiliate commission, doing it as a discount, and I know it's a solid product or service. That gives me consistency and congruence with my audience, that I'm not looking just to make money if I'm doing some kind of an affiliate deal. And it's not really an affiliate deal. It's a discounted deal based on my affiliate commission becoming a discount for my family. And I'm giving them something of value. So I'm still leading with value, and I'm selling someone else's product. And I'm fine with that. And when I'm selling my own products, I give, I have amazing educational products. I sell Breakthrough Advertising by Gene Schwartz. I sell The Brilliance Breakthrough by Gene Schwartz. I sell swipe files from copywriters, all-time greats, Bill Jamie and Jim Rutz. I sell them, but they're within the context of direct marketing education, and they're consistent. I'm not saying I'm the best marketer. I'm not saying I'm the everybody should be like me. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that I am consistent and I am congruent. And when I'm on this, going back to when I'm on stage in Hungary, Italy, wherever, I'm saying, look, you don't have to do it like I do, but the way I do it would work for you because it's relationship building to sales, which you talked about. But if you want to do it the other way, you can do it that way. And I'm not going to tell you that it's wrong, but it comes with other risks. I mean, I've been accused of being the director of sales prevention by some people in the marketing field. I wear it like a badge of honor though, because I'm not trying to prevent sales. I'm trying to do sales under the right conditions for me.
Speaking of that, doing sales under the right conditions for you. So one of the things that I'm a big believer in that I want to ask you about is the manner in which we speak to our audience. Now, as people, we speak, as our personality dictates. We might be brash, we might be loud, we might be from New York, we might be, we might be shy, we might be timid. How we communicate says a lot about who we are as people. And I really believe that as brands, how we communicate says a lot about our brand. It attracts the right type of person to us. If we're loud and brash, we're going to repel those who are a little bit more timid, and we're going to attract those who are attracted to those kinds of attributes. How do you see personality within branding and communication? And what are some good ways that we can use that within copy that we develop to compel people to buy from us, or just to give us their attention? How do you see brand personality and personality within copy as a tool for connecting with our audience?
Yeah. So as the director of sales prevention, which is me, I think that persuading someone is all about, it's a lot of things. One of the things, it's showing, not telling. I like to show people how something works, and even showing them how it works while I'm doing it. So there's no facade. I even come right out and say sometimes, I need you to have this in your library, that kind of thing. The other piece of that is this whole idea of authenticity, which I'm fed up with it. Not that I don't want to be authentic, but when I'm at a conference and someone's on stage and someone turns to me and goes, wow, that guy or that woman, she's so authentic. And I'm saying, okay, what is she like when she comes off stage? She's not authentic? Is she the same in both places? And that, to me, it's sort of like what you see is what you get. And it's about consistency. Some people play a salesperson on stage, they play a salesperson in email, and in person, they're a completely different person. Now, some people need to do that and I probably need to do that more if I wanted to sell more, because that's not my nature to be a hard sell kind of guy. Although I want people to have my material. So those bang against each other also in terms of brand.
But that's kind of exactly what I'm getting at, right? Because I don't think brand authenticity or authenticity should be a term that we're speaking about, really. But the conditions of the world, this Instagram world where people big themselves up and create this facade, has kind of left us feeling that we have a thirst for people who are a little bit more real. Now, I completely agree with you. I'm fed up with the idea that we need to put authenticity on a pedestal. That should be the default, but
Exactly.
It's not. And I think that creates this environment where brands can kind of use it as an edge to help us all move past this world of facades and Instagram and
try to do the opposite too. Brands used for evil can go the opposite way. That everything is like that's the pedestal brand. It's like, you need to buy my product because it's the best in the world, as opposed you need to buy my product because I've worked for the last 30 years building it, and I'll tell you some stories about my struggles. You tell the hero's journey, that's how you got there. That's a show, not a tell. And so the problem with just branding and thinking that you're just going to sell the brand, I think it's a flawed concept. Unless, if you have a Nike swoosh, it's much easier to do, or any kind of brand. But to hitch to the wagon that says, the brand sells itself, It's like, I can't, and it can work. I'm not saying everything I'm saying is that you need to do it the opposite way or you need to do it one way, but that's not the way that brands and direct marketing, work together, as we've talked about a lot on this podcast. The other piece of that, and I just had this happen to me in an email group with in a mastermind that I'm a member of, and the guy is trying to brand something, and he was talking about the name and the URL that he was going with was maybe not the best, and he wanted to change the name of the company and the URL. It'll be a hassle, but I wanted to say more of what it's doing as opposed to being this, neuro kind of thing. And so I chimed in and I said, and this is a really important concept for everybody to understand. It's that, when you're starting to talk about names, URLs, and logos, and that's the only thing you're talking about, you're on the wrong track.
Yeah.
If you want to really sell and market through relationships and all of that. And so I have an expression, it's on my wall. It says, if it doesn't cause a if it doesn't lose an order or cause a rejection, it doesn't matter. And if you start with that, then you can be free to think. It's like, should this URL just say what it does? Should the title of it say what it does? Should you use language, going back to your original question of this segment, when you said, what kind of language can you use to your list, your online family that will sell it the best? It's the language that they speak in. That's the way. You need to go into like, if you have an audience that really well, and you've gotten rid of the people who don't belong, all you have is people who do belong, find out where they hang out. What books do they buy? Go to Google, go to Amazon, and see what books they're buying, and see what language they use when they do reviews. Go to forums on Facebook and see, lurk in focus in forums where people are talking in the language that you use with your audience, hopefully authentic. Put that in quotes. So it's all about, that's the research that you need to do. And again, when we talked originally, my first point about the idea of letting the market tell you how to brand your product, it's having your market tell you how to speak to them, how to write to them. But you still need to be consistent. And I think that's where a lot of online marketers fall by the wayside, because their consistency is wavering, because they'll do like tons of sales of affiliate deals, which doesn't sound like them. And in many cases, it's not. They're borrowing copy from the affiliate to send to their list, to their, to whatever they're selling. And so it can't be consistent. That's a choice. That's a valid choice that any list owner of an email list can make, but it's a choice that I'm not willing to make. I'm not going to take someone else's copy, because, look, my copy is not always the best. It's not always great. Some weeks I like my blog, some weeks I don't. There's stuff in my book that I like more than others, and if I had to do over again, I cringe sometimes when I see stuff in my book and I say, why did I say it that way? Whatever. But I'm consistent, and that helps me sleep at night, where I'm not going out of it's not even a comfort zone. It's my zone. And it's everybody's zone. Everybody has a zone of genius. Stay within that and use the language that you're comfortable with. And the funny thing is, once you get a rhythm, as you do you've done it, because you get 40 to 50% open rates, you get a lot of engagement, as I do. So that you've achieved at least a different level of synergism with your audience. Now keep the consistency going, because and the only way to do that is to engage and find out. Like, someone wrote to me recently. I get a lot of feedback that says, "Oh, Brian, I love your blogs, but sometimes they're just too long." And I said, "All right, if I had more time, I'd write you a shorter blog." That's the I just get going with, I'm writing. That's a Mark Twain quote. He says, I would have, if I had more time, I'd write you a shorter letter. So it's like I get going and I have something to say and I would just want to say it. You can read it or not read it. That's my style. And I'm not going to waver on that. But then I have some people that say, I had one yesterday. My blog last week was a profile of a great direct marketing guy, Lester Wonderman, who died 4 years ago. And I was reminded of him. So I repeated the blog I wrote 4 years ago on him and I updated it. And someone wrote to me and said, I have a guy that worked with Lester. Lester died. He was 98. That was 4 years ago. The guy who was asking about who read my blog was 90. So he proved that he worked with Lester Wonderman. I saw his CV and he said, and it was interesting. He said, I love what you wrote about Lester. And I didn't even know him that well, but I followed him. He wrote a great book in my early days. Well, in 2001, he wrote a book called Being Direct, which was one of my Bibles early in my career. And then he updated it in 2013, I think. So this guy, this 90-year-old guy, Lou Adler, he writes to me and he says, I would love to reprint your blog about Lester Wonderman to my 1,000, subscribers to my blog. But I can't put all the links that you put in because I have links to Breakthrough Advertising. I have links to my mastermind. So I went to him and I said, I am not that guy. I do it because I want people to know what I have available that relates to what I'm talking about. Take all the links out, all of them. If you want to edit it, but it's the content that he wanted. And I gave it to him. I said, do an attribution with my website. If they want to opt into my list, that's fine, but use it. And I realized that, even my stuff was asking and selling more than, this 90-year-old guy who's got nothing to prove. He's got nothing to do except talk to his audience at the base. I don't want to say it's not superficial. It's very deep that he has this list of 1,000 people that read him. I bet they open his emails like at 75% because they know he's not selling anything and he's just sharing his career of 90 years or his life of 90 years. So it really said that even my stuff, which I think is so pure and so, here's a guy who's so pure that he can, and I said, take my blog post, share it. Because that's my whole point. I wanted to share the life of Lester Wonderman. But I still had asks in there. I still had my selling links in there. But I realized that it's different strokes for different folks. It's all about what your audience expects, what they want, writing in their language. His audience doesn't speak in the language of links to things that you're selling. Perfect.
Yeah.
Revise it any way you want. I gave him full editing rights, as long as it doesn't change the meaning, full editing rights to my blog post. And that's a perfect example of using your content always for good and not evil, being consistent, even though I'm asking and selling on a regular basis. I do it mostly in my PSs, actually. That's how I draw the line, too, because I don't really like to sell in the body copy of my blog. But I do in the PS. I like to throw something out there in the PS that's related to the blog that I do sell. And when I'm coaching in my blog or giving advice, I have a mastermind that's inexpensive and it's virtual. And I just give them the link. I said, you want to join my mastermind? Please join it. I mean, if you don't like my blog, don't join, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my career. I'm going to share what I've learned over 40 years. I'm going to share what I've got. So don't join my mastermind if you aren't enjoying my blog. If you're enjoying my blog, join my mastermind. You'll become, even a better member of my online family. So there's all of that that gets worked in. I'm not perfect by any means. Somebody did say to me, not just the guy, the 90-year-old guy, someone did say to me, I wish you would have fewer links in your blogs. I said, I just want to make sure people know what I have available. And if I'm talking about it, I'm just going to do a link. I don't sometimes say click here. I
casually have a link in there if they're able to find their way to what it is that you're offering, then exactly. Great. And look, at the end of the day, we're all in this business to to help other people. Okay. The businesses that we create, okay, we create them because we've all got this vision for a better lives for ourselves. We want to give
exactly.
our value to the world. If you create
the thing
something,
is, I'm not a nonprofit, and you're not either.
Exactly. If you create something to bring value to the world, then it's in your best interest and the best interest of those people to whom you're bringing value to give them an opportunity to take advantage of what you're putting into the world. And if you use persuasive copy to do it, then that will help to bridge that gap. Exactly. So, Brian, but before I let you go, anybody who's listening now, if you haven't read Overdeliver, I really recommend it. It's a great book. There are some great fundamental principles in there. There are some great tools that are really applicable that you can take in to your own work and start to apply them straight away. I definitely recommend reading that book. If somebody wants to buy that book or to get in touch with you or to ask you or find out, where all these links that you have go to and what you're actually offering, where's the best place that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, the best place to become a member of my online family, which is another way of saying get on my list. And you know what my philosophy is. You don't have to buy anything. I don't do affiliates. All of that is true. All they need to go is to briankurtz.net, BrianKurtz.net. There's the first thing on the page. There's a lot of free content on that page. My blogs are all on there going back to 2014. Everything is there, a lot of free stuff. And you opt in, you get an interview that I did with Perry Marshall, who's a great marketer. And you'll get my blog every Sunday. You'll hear about when I do a launch of my mastermind and all of that. But the purpose is I share every Sunday something of value. And I think, well, if you don't think it's of value, you can unsubscribe anytime. That's the best way. Mm-hmm. As far as the book goes, I have a site that you can go to Amazon and buy it, but I would suggest if you want to buy it or look at it, go to overdeliverbook.com. Mm-hmm. It's exactly as it's spelled, overdeliverbook.com.
I'll leave the links in the show notes anyway.
Excellent. And there, you have to buy the book, and I don't make any money on the book. I got an advance I got an advance to write it. I have not made back my advance in royalties yet. I've sold over 10,000 copies, so I'm happy with the sales, but I don't make money on every sale of the book. Mm-hmm. But what I did was, because the book was called Overdeliver, I needed to overdeliver with my bonuses. And on overdeliverbook.com, the bonuses, I hate to say this because it makes my book sound like crap, but the bonuses are worth way more than the $27 or $25 you pay for the book. And the bonuses are incredible. I think I have 19 keynote speeches that you can access that Jay Abraham has given over his career, and a course that he developed for over $200,000, all free, all digital. I've got 2 classic books on direct mail by 2 of my mentors, Dick Benson and Gordon Grossman, full PDFs of their books, which are incredible. They're not available anywhere. So the PDFs of the books are just, and direct mail is still a foundational marketing channel that you can learn a lot from in today's online marketplace. And so the books are fantastic. I've got a swipe file, which is great ads going back to 1900. And I talk about swipe files and the benefit of swipe files in my book, Overdeliver. So I developed a swipe file with a direct mail archivist.
And just to confirm, these are all only available on overdeliverbook.com. So if you go to Amazon and you get the book, you won't get all of these bonuses. Okay.
You can buy it on Amazon. Go to overdeliverbook. Well, basically what overdeliverbook.com is, you get there and it's got a bunch of testimonials from greats in direct marketing about the book, of course. But then it says, 3 steps to get all these bonuses. Step 1 is go to there's a link to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and indie books. Go to any one, buy the book, opens up a new window, come back to the site, which is already open, and then you put your order number in and your name from
and then
Amazon,
you get the bonuses.
Or whatever. And then you hit a button and you get all the bonuses for free. And you can buy the book on Kindle or or audio and still get all the bonuses.
Awesome.
So
Well, all of this will be in the transcription as well. So, if you're listening to this in the car or whatever, just jump on to the blog post, the transcription, and all of those steps will be in there for you to follow and get all of those bonuses. It's worth obviously getting all those bonuses as well.
And it sounds like I'm selling, but I'm really not. What I'm doing is exactly what we've talked about. If I can find people who are your audience, who want to develop a relationship with me, like they have a relationship with you, and they have it, like both, whether a lot of people on this who listen to this podcast are on your list as well. I'm not trying to, steal names from you. I want to find out who is also, because I think we are in sync on our messaging, on branding and direct marketing. I mean, I've really enjoyed this podcast very much because, I do look for podcasts where people, I don't want people to just agree with me, but I do want people who are, basically of the same ilk, the same philosophy that I have. And so I assume that the people who follow you are people who want to follow me. And that's all this is about. My mission is to, be the bridge, because I'm old enough to be a bridge from the fundamentals of direct response marketing to everything that's state of the art today, and to be a connector between those two worlds. I want to teach, but I also want to learn, because I'm a student and a teacher every day of everything I do. So that's been my mission for my whole career, but mostly since I left Boardroom and became, I launched Titans Marketing, because it's like a second career that now I'm teaching what I did. Jay Abraham has an expression.
What expression is that?
Well, he just says that, if you've done it, you have an obligation to teach it. And that's where I am in my life.
And I have to say, I got so much value from the book. This interview has been loaded with value as well. So you're doing a great job of passing on that knowledge. And I know that when this podcast gets released, we'll get a ton of views as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the show today, Brian. I really, really appreciate it. And let's do it again sometime.
Great, Stephen. Really enjoyed it. And your questions were great. And our dialogue was really good. So